I graduated from CUNY Medgar Evers in Brooklyn, New York, and I was an English major with a concentration in cross-cultural literature. I had no idea what I was going to do after. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with my degree.
Once you graduated with your degree, what was the transition after, graduation? What did you, land in or get into?
So I actually was very, very fortunate to have landed a job within the school before graduation.
Okay.
So it was like a part-time position. So it wasn't like an official, I wasn't making a salary or anything, but I was really proud of the work that we were doing. So I was in a new department called Emerging Technologies, well, then new, called Emerging Technologies. And what we were
Mhm.
doing was really looking to standardize the online courses across the college. And so it was there that I like to say that I caught the tech bug. As a, an administrator in the office, I had to know how all the different tiers work. So all the different user roles, I'm like, oh, but can it do this? And can it do that? And oh, but what if I want to do, and my manager looked at me one day and he said, you're thinking like a programmer. And it was just like an aha moment, like, wow. So when I came across this article basically talking about the partnership between CUNY and Revature,
Mhm.
it was just like, oh my God, this program, it's just for me. I have to do it.
What was it that stood out to you that made you say, you know what, this might be something I need to go further in, because obviously something had been awakened in you to connect even when you saw it. But what was it that made you say this could be?
Looking at the article, and basically there was a partnership between CUNY and Revature. And I'm like, this is for me. It's designed specifically for me. I was
Mhm.
really, really attracted to the fact that it was like a free training, right? So they weren't charging me to teach me.
Mhm.
Um, and for me, and then, like it just seemed like an excellent opportunity. I looked at the website because I'm like, is this legit? And after reading a few testimonials, I'm like, okay, we're doing this. We're doing this and we will see what happens. So it was a huge leap of faith, a huge risk that I took,
Mhm.
something that I definitely didn't plan for, but I mean, look where I ended up.
And when was it that you started with us or started the process, with us? Because we want to kind of put idea, give people an idea of the timeline that all of this took, and then getting on the project and things like that.
I started, so because I am a non-traditional, like come from a non-traditional background, so I didn't have any tech experience. I hadn't taken a coding class. I hadn't taken CIS 101, like nothing. So there was like a 2 week seed program, they called it,
Mhm.
that I did at first. So that was just to kind of toss me into a pond and see what
Mhm.
happened, right? And so after that 2 weeks, um, I was invited to participate in a larger batch,
Mhm.
which went for about 3 months. So
Okay.
I think the my seed program started like mid September.
Mhm.
By the end of September, I was starting like the batch, and then by the beginning of December, we were doing interviews already.
Once you're done with your cohort or training, or coming to the end of that training, you don't have to go out and find clients to interview for. We're bringing them to you to start your interview process. You're doing panel interviews, you're doing mock interviews to prepare and get ready. You have to know the lingo, the talks, what they're looking for. We're preparing you for that. And with that being said, do you feel that you were prepared? Do you feel that you had prepped enough? How was that process? How were the interviews going?
With information. And what I really, really loved is that it wasn't just about the tech, right? It wasn't just about the technology. They're not just shoving code down your throat. They're doing every week, right? There's a new topic in the tech, but they're reinforcing, right? There are quizzes, there are assignments, there's group projects and stuff to make sure that you're not only getting the material, but that you're also learning to collaborate. And learning kind of the expectations as a software developer, which I thought was really cool. But then they're also training you for interviewing. They're also teaching you to come. It's 9 to 5. You've got to be here. You've got to be on time. You've got to be dressed, So it's like getting you perfectly in rhythm to interview and then, post placement to, work and deliver in this environment. So we were all well prepared.
Talk about when you were hearing that if you work for Revature, you have to be open to nationwide relocation
when I looked at this opportunity, I mean, and then fast forward, right? When I discovered this, I had just turned 25. So, it was like I'd been home all my life. I've been in New York all my life.
Mhm.
And now it's like I was finally graduating. I was finally getting out of school, and it felt like the world was opening up to me for the
Mhm.
first time. And so when I heard about, having to relocate, for me, it was a game changer. I know for a lot of people, they look at it and they're just like, I don't want to be stranded somewhere, stuck there for 2 years in this contract. But for me, it really was an opportunity to try something new and to get out of New York. I mean, being guaranteed job security for up to 2 years or at least 2 years, and then also having the opportunity to get out and live on my own, for me, those were bonuses personally. So for me, I definitely needed that. Like some kind of
Mhm.
security was like real. That was important to me, especially like coming out of school. I think coming up on graduation, it's kind of like, okay, I've been doing school, but now what do I do
Mhm.
next when school is
Right.
over? And so to go into a program and know that I was going to be placed in a job by the end of it, and then 2 years of job security is just like, okay, 2 years, that's awesome. Because a lot of times what happens is you get out of school and you have your degree and you're like, yeah, I did it. And then you can't find work because everybody's like, well, you need experience. So we
Yeah.
won't hire you because you don't have any experience.
Right.
And then you feel like, but I'm qualified. Like, how do I get experience if no one will hire me? And so Revature really closes that gap and takes away all the guesswork out of, well, where do I work now? Right. So I didn't have those concerns. It took a lot of the anxiety out of, graduation, which is supposed to be this really exciting moment.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that you talked about us bridging that gap because that is exactly what we're looking to do. So many times we hear our associates talk about, what brought them our way or what stood out for them was that, well, I applied to XYZ, company, or I applied, had 15, different places that I have interviewed for and I got turned down because everyone keeps saying I don't have experience. And maybe some of those same people that they applied for could be our clients that we're getting them in front of and having those interviews, with those large Fortune 500 type companies, the large banking clients, that we have. They're getting an opportunity to get in front of them and do what you said, have that 2 years of security, which now they can put on their resume. And if they're going to, launch
Exactly.
out further, it's like, okay, I now have the experience to come in at that next level developer that maybe, I didn't have prior. So you're absolutely right on bridging the gap. Did you interview with multiple clients or did the first client you interviewed with snatch you up?
And so different people from like different, different interviewers from different like contracts, different accounts within Emphasis
Okay.
came to us and interviewed us there. And so, of course, we're all freaking out because this is the final test, right? And I went into my first interview and I was super excited and nervous, but, did the thing. I did the
Hmm.
thing. And later, after every interview, we're back in the group and we're talking, well, what did you answer for this one? Did they ask you this? Did they? And I realized as we were talking that I totally bombed. I had totally bombed my interview. My first one, I was like, oh my God, like, how did I forget that? Oh my God, that was so stupid. I can't believe I said that. Oh, that's why he looked at me like that when I said that. Oh my God. It was a mess, right? And then I had two more interviews after that.
Okay.
And because they just keep you on steady interviews. It's not like you interview once and then you wait for a reply. Like, no, you're constantly interviewing. So we had
Hmm.
sometimes two in a day, depending on how we were scheduled. And yeah, so I did three interviews, and then
Okay.
I found out later that I had actually landed the first
Wonderful. Again, a number of clients that we work with, and that client could sometimes have the option of what we call direct hire. So what basically happened with your cohort is they directly hired your entire group, which is phenomenal. Our goal is generally to see our associates convert to be full-time employees of the client. that they're going to work for, in essence, because if they, and you have two ways that you can go about that. You can go about that by being a direct hire. You could be working for them on project, and after about a year or so, they could say, wow, we really like this associate's work, and we want to offer them a full-time opportunity to come on and be our employee going forward. Now, when you were with Emphasis, you did your 2 years with them, and you got approached.
I've been in Charlotte now for 3.5, almost 4 years actually. So I was with Emphasis for, yeah, like 3.5 years.
Okay.
And then the bank basically came to me and offered me a job. I didn't apply, I didn't look for it. I literally was just operating in my
Mhm.
position that I was hired for. And someone decided that they wanted to bring me on. And that was a huge opportunity, huge opportunity. And so to look back and see where I started working at my alma mater part time to
Mhm.
being here now, 4 years later, is really mind blowing.
Let's talk about that contrast going from an English major, working part time, no full time salaried opportunity coming your way from CUNY. We fall in your lap somehow. You saw that. Started with us September 2017. Your cohort directly hired. You're working with your client. You're on project. 3.5 years, Bank of America. You're obviously doing a great job. And this is what we expect. This is what we look for, what we want. That basically, as you stated, I'm just doing my job. I'm here working, but someone realized that work, saw you, saw what you were doing, and now you're working for Bank of America, and you're, let me make sure I got this right, Associate Vice President of Software Engineering.
Yes, it sounds so fancy when you say the whole title.
So I want that to sink in for people that 2017, no experience in this industry, didn't go to school for computer engineering, was not software engineering, none of that. Didn't take any of the engineering classes. And here we are, technically 3.5, 4 years later, as an associate vice president of software engineering for one of the largest banks that's out there. When you have an opportunity to talk to others about this journey and what it has meant to you, and what you've been able to do, what are some of the things you would tell someone if they were, afraid to take that step?
Had to be a question when it came down to it of what do I have to lose versus what do I have to gain? And I
Mm-hmm.
think I just had so much more to gain than I had to lose. And at the end of the day, there was zero risk in taking the training, right? So it wasn't paid. I didn't have to put any money up. I didn't have to know anything in advance. I just was able to just come in, apply, submitted a resume that had no tech anything on it, and show up. Just show up. For me, it was just a matter of, recognizing that whether I succeeded or not, it wasn't a reflection of, you know, how smart I was or
Mm-hmm.
a reflection of how hard I worked. For me, it was extremely scary, and I think it was the whole Revature experience for me was a lesson in showing up. It was a lesson in showing up. It was a lesson in taking a risk and trying things, even knowing that I may or may not succeed, which was huge for me at that point in my life. Like I was used to being the smart girl. I was used to being the straight A student. I was used to being, good at everything that I touched. And so it was incredibly difficult to transition into this new opportunity that had so much to offer me, but only if I would get past that fear that was kind of holding me back. And so at graduation, I was kind of in this moment of the world is my oyster if only I will grab it, if only I will do the thing. And so I decided that I was going to take the risk. And then I had to sit in that decision and continue
Mm-hmm.
taking the risk. I had times where I had done a project and my code was disobedient and it just didn't follow instructions. We used to say the demo gods are against us, right? Something that worked perfectly 2 hours before your presentation, when it's
Mm-hmm.
time for you to present, right? And you're like, what do I, but for me, it really was a lesson in pushing through
Mm-hmm.
and showing up because, things are not always going to be great. Things are not
Right.
always going to be easy, but that doesn't mean we don't do them or that we don't try. And so, there are so many things that I learned about myself in the process, and so many skills, like even emotional skills, like being able to separate how well I'm doing with the work from how well, like how I view myself, right? Because
Hmm.
those are two different things, you know? So there was just so many different pieces that went into it, that even if I hadn't made it through the program, even if I hadn't, won the grand prize and actually landed a career in tech, I still would have gained so much from the experience that I'm not sure how I would have gained otherwise.
The one thing I definitely, hear a lot of is that a lot of people say they really learned about collaboration and working as a group. They thought they got it in college, but we teach it because it's going to be real world. That's how you work when you're on project, right? You're working in a group, you're collaborating, you're presenting. You're going to have that day that the code didn't work, that was working 30 minutes ago. So what happened to you is real.
It plays in, and then like you said, it becomes like a real part of your day to day. Like a lot of, we like to joke in my batch, at least we like to joke that we got like 4 years worth of college crammed into this 3 month span. And so it is intense, there is pressure, but there is so much that you gain literally at no cost to you. Still blows my mind, right? Still blows my mind. So it was just an incredible experience. And then what you were saying about collaboration is so true, because
Hmm.
in the tech industry, what happens is code is like, programs, applications are constantly being worked on, right?
Hmm.
So it's not like everywhere you go, you're going to be building something from the ground up. And what that means is you may come in to work on some application or some piece of code or some anything that somebody has built before you, somebody has touched before you. And then you go in and make your changes and you become responsible for that whole, you know what I mean, piece of code. You have to know how it works. You have to know what it does. You want to know, all of these things. So when you think about collaboration, it's not like it was in our group projects in college. It's not the same. You really
Right.
do have to take ownership, but also share ownership and really learn what that means in terms of communication and really being open to sharing ideas, not just giving yours and making sure everyone else listens. Like collaboration
Absolutely.
is a process. It's an art.
Absolutely. And
It's not, all big, bad, and scary. There is work that goes into it, but
yes.
it's really about your attitude. The right attitude and the right perspective will take you anywhere you want to go. I think what is really cool about Revature's program, so I've heard this thing that like a butterfly, when they're trying to break out of the cocoon, right? It's difficult. It's a really big struggle. They have to break the shell and kind of crawl out of it and make the hole big enough to get out. But that if you interrupt the process, the butterfly doesn't have the skills, like the strength to fly. And so the butterfly will die if it doesn't, like do the work to get out of the cocoon. So I feel like going through Revature is like the cocoon. And so you have to fight through, you know what I mean? You fight through it, but once you come out, you are equipped to fly.
Absolutely.
I think in my interview, they're like, well, you have an English degree. Do you feel like that, hinders your, ability to do this job or anything? Do you think that puts you at a disadvantage? And for me, it definitely wasn't the case. I think that, coming from a background in English, which of course is not specific to English, but I got lots of like critical thinking skills. And so I think it just kind of gave me a certain kind of insight in like from high level. So the technical is like low level, like really specific, right? So like we're looking at trees. But for me, I was looking at it from like a forest perspective. So it was more difficult for me to grasp like the hands-on of the tech, but the concepts were like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Okay, I understand that. So and then like I keep saying, like my soft skills, I have soft skills naturally. So I was able to get that part, and then Revature gave me the tech. But then for people who kind of have the technical part already, Revature also gives you the soft skills. So it's kind of like whatever you have, Revature is here to give you whatever else you need. But definitely, bring yourself to the party. I feel so privileged to be here. And especially as a Black woman in tech, which I feel like it's almost like a double minority, right? Like, so the opportunities don't always trickle down into all the crevices. So I was really, really happy to and just blessed to get the opportunity So I've been blessed to work for great companies that kind of have that on the forefront. I know other women for whom that hasn't been the experience in their tech journey. And I'm just grateful that this has been mine, but also know we're coming. And Revature is helping to bridge the gap. I am absolutely excited and just almost like I want to know too. I want to know too where I'm going to end up. So I think for me, coming from, like I keep saying, non-traditional background and really not having tech anywhere near the forefront of my mind until I did, um, really until Revature, right? I am super excited just to see what the industry has to offer me. I think when I started with Emphasis, it was just like, okay, this is the next step. I'm with my company now. Now what? What does that mean? What does this look like? So once you figure out what your job role is, you can see how much, like how many different roles there really are that are like within the technology industry. I think people think that it's only coding or it's only like very specific to very specific types of applications or platforms, but it's really not. There's so much room to grow in technology, and there are so many different links in the chain that connect like a line of business to the actual tech. And so at any spot on the chain, you can find yourself there. And then I also think too, once you kind of get your foot in the door and you start somewhere, you have the experience. Your resume is now flourishing, and you can kind of branch out and take those applicable skills and transfer them to, almost anywhere you want to go. So I'm really excited to see where I end up. Right now, I'm really excited just to master my position because there's so much to learn there and so much digging, and I'm really happy with Bank of America. But definitely just so much opportunity to explore what the tech industry really has for me. I mean, I just want to thank you guys so, so much for having me on this platform. Like I said, a lot of times I think the information doesn't get disseminated. I think that in this day and age, there are so many opportunities and programs out there, but sometimes the problem is getting the information to the people who need the resources, right? Or who need the opportunities. And so as a part of CUNY, to see that opportunity kind of extended to us and to me directly as a Black woman was really refreshing and really exciting. So just to be able to kind of pay it forward, and spread the word about my journey, because if I can do it, literally anyone can do it. Like literally anyone can do it. If you have an interest, if you want to explore what the tech industry has for you, you know, try it. And Revature is really, really giving that opportunity that I might not have had otherwise. So always excited to spread the word and share my kind of Cinderella story, because I'm so grateful to have been able to have it.